This man was stuck upside down inside a cave for 27 hours. Rescuers of the highest level came to save him, and then something happened that left everyone shocked. If you have a weak heart, it's better not to watch this video further, because hearing this story, even the bravest individuals start to feel fear. This is the most unusual and most terrifying death in caving history. This is the story of the Nutty Putty Cave. On November 24, 2009, a 26-year-old man named John Edward, who lived in Utah, USA, came straight home to Utah from his job after taking leave. When he met his family, they all planned to celebrate this vacation in an exciting way. They decided to explore the Nutty Putty Cave, a decision that was about to become the most terrifying one of their lives. The family's plan was to explore Nutty Putty Cave at 8 p.m. on the night of November 24th, and return home after a few hours. But what was about to happen there was beyond anyone's imagination. Although John was visiting the cave for the first time, he had some caving experience since he used to go caving with his younger brother during childhood. In the cave, there is a section known as the birth canal, which is extremely narrow and tight. Even experienced cavers can't squeeze through easily. Many people's hips and shoulders get stuck there, and no matter how hard they try, they can't get out without a rescue team. For this reason, the cave was shut down years ago, and Nutty Putty Cave had only reopened in March 2009 with new rules. The rules required that anyone wishing to enter the cave had to obtain a permit from the authorities 21 days in advance, and each group had to have at least 2 experienced cavers. John and his 13-year-old younger brother Josh were both experienced cavers, so they got the permit to enter. Then the whole family reached the entrance of Nutty Putty Cave together. The passage was only 30 inches wide, and they all entered the cave at 8 p.m. on November 24th. Once the entire group was inside the cave, everything went well for the first hour, and everyone confidently moved forward. However, John, Josh, and 2 of their friends stopped at a big slide and decided, after looking at a map, to visit the most challenging part of the cave, the birth canal, which is the deepest section of the cave. It is so tight that only a few people can cross it, and it is believed that there is a long, tight passage. And if you get through it, you will find a small room where you'll have a chance to turn around and then make your way back. Although it is so tight that even experienced cavers start to feel claustrophobic and panic. His younger brother Josh, who was coming behind him, reached the birth canal and both of them entered it. But the mistake was that the route John and Josh took was not actually the birth canal route. John and Josh had entered the wrong route, which they had no idea about. John moved 15 feet ahead, encountering several rocks along the way. Although John was healthy, he could move his body into different orientations. By folding his shoulders, waist, and legs into the proper direction, he continued to move forward. John was now in a corkscrew-shaped route. As John moved forward, the passage became increasingly tighter. By this point, he couldn't even turn back. The passage was extremely tight. He felt like he was in the birth canal, and according to what he knew, there was supposed to be a small place at the end where he would have a chance to turn around. So he continued to move forward. And this was the point where things started to go wrong. By now, he had reached the corkscrew area. To cross this corkscrew area, cavers needed to be very small and flexible. Only a few people can cross it using their skills. From there, cavers needed to make a sharp 90-degree bend to the left. John had already turned from the small area to the left. After this, he reached the most difficult section. 5 years earlier, a 16-year-old boy named Brock Clark had become stuck in this exact corkscrew section. He was 5 feet 7 inches tall and weighed 63 kilograms. And it took 14 hours to rescue him. John was in the exact same spot, though he was 6 feet tall and weighed 90 kilograms. He had no option to turn around and go back. Due to the extremely tight space, he was forced to move forward, squeezing himself into the leg area. Although this area was tight, John thought it was the most constricted part of the birth canal. He believed that a larger space would appear ahead, and he would have a chance to turn around. He continued to press his stomach against the rocks and move forward. He was moving downward in the tunnel. He didn't know exactly where he was going, but he hoped he would find an opening ahead. Then he suddenly started to fall downward. He grabbed himself with his hands and screamed loudly. He told his brother, "Josh, don't come here. Don't follow me." He needed to use his shoulders to move forward. To get out? Then John saw a glimpse of a hole with his headlamp. A glimmer of hope awakened in him. But this was John's biggest and final mistake. He moved forward and put his head into the hole, and exactly the tunnel he was going through was unknown. By now he had reached there, and the tunnel was even tighter. The space was very cramped. Although he thought there would be an opening ahead, the path was blocked. This was the end of the cave's passage. The space here was 18 by 1 inch, which meant he was completely upside down, with his head down and feet up, and twisted at nearly a 60-degree angle. He tried to push himself up, but in that tight space, one of his hands was stuck in a useless position, and the other hand was bent towards his chest. He attempted to push himself against the wall, but he quickly realized that despite all his efforts, he couldn't move. His feet were also stuck in the smallest part of the hole. He called out to Josh again, who was still on the corkscrew path behind him. But instead of crossing this area like his brother, Josh moved his feet forward and then positioned his head backward so he could easily return from the front. He continued to hear John's voice and finally reached the spot where he saw that John had gotten into a hole and it had swallowed him completely. Only his 2 feet were visible. Josh tried to pull John by grabbing his feet with his own feet, but John would come up slightly, and then the grip would slip. John would then return to his initial position, and repeating this didn't help. In this situation, both were frustrated, and Josh realized that professional rescuers would need to be called in. It was decided that Josh would go outside to get help, while John would try to stay calm and breathe slowly, because there was a severe lack of oxygen. Anyway, Josh exited the cave, informed everyone, and the rescue team was called in. The biggest problem was that John was in an upside-down position. The rescue doctor believed that due to being upside down, he could only survive for 8 hours before all his organs would start to fail. He could also suffer from cardiac arrest. The first person to enter for John's rescue was a female rescuer named Susie. She entered by tying a rope around her legs to avoid getting stuck inside. Being only 5.3 feet tall made it easier for Susie to cross the corkscrew area. She met John at 12:30 a.m., and by then, John had been stuck for 9 hours. Susie then had a conversation with him. John felt that with professional help, he would be able to get out immediately, but he was wrong. Susie realized that the situation was much worse than it appeared. Susie tied John's legs with the rope and tried to pull him out. However, the friction in the rope was too high, making it ineffective to pull. Susie tried everything she could, but she also became frustrated after 2 hours. She had to leave the cave. She was extracted using a pulley system. Moving all the equipment pieces to the other side of the corkscrew took hours. The tunnel was extremely tight, and only small tools could be brought inside. At any given time, only one person could assist, and that person needed to be small and flexible to cross effectively. This was not a simple situation, and each pulley system installation was taking hours. During this time, the rescuers were also trying to keep John calm by talking to him. John had been stuck there for 12 hours by then, and he had spent the entire night in an upside-down position. Additionally, the body has its physical limitations for staying in such a position, and he had surpassed those limitations. His 90-kilogram body was fighting against the pressure of gravity, and there were complications in his blood circulation. Gradually, his breathing was becoming shallow. Spending the entire night there was becoming increasingly agonizing. His legs had stopped functioning. For the rescuers and John's family, seeing him in such a condition was very painful, but they were also helpless, and the rescuers were becoming exhausted while drilling. The rescuers knew that they could leave anytime they wanted, but that was not John's fate. He was distressed and trying to expand his chest to breathe, while the oxygen concentration in the air was also decreasing. After such a long time, a wide telecom system was set up for John, and from the other side, John's wife Emily talked to him. She tried to encourage John, and John reassured his wife that he would get out soon and everything would be fine. By then, it was 4 p.m., and John had been trapped for 18 hours. The pulley system was now installed and ready to move. A rescuer named Ryan entered the cave and reached John. Ryan says, "How are you, John?" John replies, "This sucks. I can't believe I'm stuck here. My legs are killing me. Ryan sees that John's body is stuck on the narrow side of the opening, so he first tries to fix it. Then he ties a rope to John's feet and starts pulling, but John's feet were in extreme pain. Whenever Ryan pulled, John would tell him to stop because his nerves had become ultra-sensitive. After that, they both paused for some time, and then they tried again. By now, it seemed that the pulley system was working. John was almost high enough that he could see and make eye contact with Ryan. Ryan then gave John some water to drink. John's feet were hitting the ceiling, and it was impossible for him to twist his feet in that passage. So Ryan finally decided to break John's legs, and then something unimaginable happened that no one could have anticipated. The entire system had failed. A bolt that had been drilled into the wall above John came out of the wall and fell directly onto Ryan's head, causing Ryan to become unconscious. John, who had been halfway up, fell back to his initial position, and now there was no response from him. This moment marked John's final fate. He might never get out. When Ryan regained consciousness, his head was bleeding. He was completely confused about what had happened. Ryan was taken out and sent to the hospital. In his place, John's father Dave entered the cave, and it took another hour to install the broken pulley system. Dave tried to tie John's body with a rope, but no response was coming from John despite Dave's efforts. The entire operation could not have been completed without help. It was not possible for a 90-kilogram man to get out of the cave without assistance. While Dave was trying to tie John with the rope, he himself got stuck for 15 minutes. Finally, Dave also became frustrated and exhausted, came out. Now, Brandon Coles, a new rescuer, took his place, and a new telecom system was set up so that John's family could talk to him. But what Brandon could see was not what Emily could see. John was not responding at all. It was unclear if he could even hear the conversation. A few hours earlier, John's breathing could be heard, but now it had ceased. The rescue team, forming a group in one area, decided that John might be dead. They decided to send a medical professional into the passage to confirm it, and that was exactly what happened. Medical professionals confirmed that John has died. On the night of November 25th at 11:56 p.m., it is officially confirmed that John Edward Jones has officially passed away. 120 rescuers made back-to-back efforts for 27 hours to get John out, but due to John's upside-down position, it was impossible. John spent the last 27 hours of his life in an extremely inverted position. While doctors had predicted he would only survive in such a condition for 10 hours, this is truly commendable. All the rescuers who went inside to reach John were indeed heroes. They voluntarily went to help in a place they themselves didn't know about. How risky it was. One rescuer tells the media that this was the toughest rescue of his 29-year career, and they failed in this rescue. The authorities were making every effort to get John's body out of the cave. But after discussion, it was decided that this would be too dangerous for the rescue team. And finally, the decision was made that John's body would remain permanently entombed there, and the entrance would be sealed with concrete. A week later, the entire Nutty Putty cave was sealed off forever. So friends, this was John's story. But can you imagine a man trapped alone in a cave, fighting for his life as days turn into weeks? Discover the haunting tale of Floyd Collins, a cave explorer who endured an unimaginable struggle for survival. To watch the full story, click the link above. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to subscribe and share. Thank you.